taking a section at 1.5, adding and subtracting real numbers. This section seems pretty easy, so I don't feel as if there's too much that I really need to reiterate here, but a few things that I'll probably have to make a note of when it comes to different signs. So if we're adding numbers with the same sign, we'll see some examples here. So this is if we're adding two numbers that are positive. You've been doing this forever. They're both positive and you're adding, so just add up accordingly. So if you had 5 plus 10, think of it, you're on 5 on the number line and you add on 10 more, so that's 15. Whereas if we had two terms that are negative, let's say that here we have -2 and we're adding on -7. One way you could think about this is if, since you're adding a negative number, you're bringing everything down. It's as if you're becoming more negative. Think if you added someone to a party and that person's really negative at the party, they're subtweeting you, they're talking poorly about you. It's as if in reality, you still have your -2 at the front, but you could just deduct 7. That's an option. So this is a crucial step right here. If you're adding a negative number, you could just treat it as if it's subtraction. So if we have -2 and we deduct 7, we could treat this as -9. So it's as if we went down further on the number line. If we're adding numbers with different signs, so let's say that we're adding a number that's positive, we're adding on some term that's negative. So let's say we have 5 and we're adding on -3. You could treat this, again, similar to what we have up here. We're adding a negative number. So you could treat this as 5 minus 3, which is 2. But on the flip side, if we had something along the lines of -3 plus 5, how would that be any different? Well, we're starting at -3 and then we're adding on 5. So this is similar to what we've seen previously as far as, I believe this is one of the properties of real numbers, as far as the order goes. So with the order seen here, as long as we keep the signs, it should give that same outcome, saying that they're equal. So in this case, since we have -3 just rearranged over here and we're adding on 5, this should still give us 2. So those are different ways you could approach it. Of course, if you need any examples for this, additional ones, let me know. And so we'll take a look at adding on accordingly. So if we have -12 on a number line, sometimes that's helpful to write that out. So we have -12 and we're adding on 7. So we're moving which direction? 7. Should be saying to the right where the positive numbers are. So if we move over once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, this should get us to -5 because this is 7 moves up. So this is -5. -8 adding on -2. You could rewrite this as -8 minus 2 if you want. So notice we're going more negative here. So we're subtracting a negative number from a negative number, so going more negative. It's -20. This one's a little tricky with decimals, so if you need to use a calculator for this, you can, but I'll show you both ways. So we have -4.8 and we're adding on 9.5. One way to approach this is by rewriting it. I always try to have negative numbers on that inner part. So if you wanted to rewrite this as 9.5 and you're adding -4.8, how can we simplify this further? Well, you could take it further and say you have 9.5, but you're taking away 4.8. If you know how to get a hold of this off the top of your head, that's cool. But for this one, if you have 9.5, you're taking away 4.8, you're left with 4.7. For D, we have fractions here, so let's see what we can do with that. So we have 3/4, and we're adding on a negative 5/6. So please note that we're using addition with fractions. This is tricky occasionally because can we add this yet? Can we just go across and say 3 minus 5 and 4 plus 6? Not quite. So our goal here is to try and get common denominators whenever this happens with addition on fractions or subtraction in this case. So we're getting common denominators. This is our subtle goal for the time being. So how we can approach this, if we have 3/4, we'll rewrite that. Since we're adding a negative number, I'm just going to jump ahead and say we're subtracting 5/6. We can get common denominators by cross multiplying. So 6, if we cross multiply that to 3, 3 times 6 is 18. If we cross multiply with the bottom part, 4 times 6 is 24. So this is an equivalent form of 3/4. If I then cross multiply 4 with this 5, still deducting, 4 times 5 gets you 20. Rightfully so, 4 times 6 on the other side gets you 24. We can then break this down further. 18 minus 20 is one way you could rewrite the numerator, so the top. The numerator is the top, denominator is the bottom. 18 minus 20, you could rewrite that as -2 over 24. Can we simplify this further? This is always a really big ordeal with fractions. So can we simplify this? Well, we know that 2 and 24 are both even numbers. If we know that 24 dividing by 2 will get you 12. 2 divided by 2 gets you 1. So this is actually considered the smallest simplified form. What's interesting is that if you're trying to use a calculator on this, so if you decide you want to try and plug in 3/4 and then you're adding on -5 dividing by 6, you end up with a decimal, which is the same outcome you'd get if you did -1 divided by 12 like we did here.